Hey, listen, and welcome to A Link to the Filmcast, where I'm your host, David Reese, in the show where we adventure across the realms of Hyrule in the silver screen. And today we'll be looking at The Maze Runner, The Death Cure. But first, we're just going to jump into a random Zelda wiki right away and see how things are going out there. Today's article is on the South Akala Plains. This is a location in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. This is in the Akala region, given the name. It's in the southern portion of the Akala region, given the name, the South Akala Plains. Specifically, in Breath of the Wild, there's a Hinox there. It's just below the tower. There's a big open area with some, like a tree tunnel, kinda. And then in Tears of the Kingdom, there is a chasm there, the South Akala Plains chasm. So as I'm doing these random Zelda articles, I was a little concerned that each Korok had its own page, and most of the pages would just be spammed of Korok seeds. But now I'm finding that we've done several now that are just locations in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom maps, which is really a testament to how big these maps really are. And I think these have just been surface locations as well. I don't believe we've done any sky locations or locations in the depths. So it's a little interesting, the random algorithm or the randomness of searching the Zelda wiki. See what kind of articles I'm getting as I look through. Not too much is said about this location. It has the Japanese and the Spanish location names for these locations. These really just is, in Spanish, it's just South Akala Plain in Spanish. And in Japanese, apparently it's the Mankari Plains, which is a portmanteau of Minami, which is south, and Akara, which is Akala. So it's just basically southern Akala in Japanese. So wiki doesn't say too much about it. From experience, I remember there being a Hinox there and a chasm there, depending on which game you're playing. And I think it's a blue Hinox there. It's been a while. Cool location. We'll see how things are going. The day this is coming out is going to be Monday, March 3rd. And as of yet, we don't have any new Switch 2 news. We're going to be about a month out from the Switch 2 Direct. We'll see if they have any Zelda launch titles on it. The teaser reveal that we got had the Mario Kart stuff, and I know Link shows up in Mario Kart. So I have a feeling that the Mario Kart will be touched on, but who knows what else Nintendo is holding up their sleeve. Tears of the Kingdom hasn't been out too long. It's been almost to 2 years old at this point already. So I doubt they'll have a new Zelda game. I mean, we have the Echoes of Wisdom, but as a full-on 3D Zelda, they're not going to be ready to showcase anything like that. Other news, thanks to Go Nintendo for writing an article linking to a YouTube channel that I'm going to put in the show notes, Gaming Reinvented. This is someone that's been going through Tears of the Kingdom, and during game design, levels are made, and then if they're decided to not move forward or whatever, they're scrapped, and sometimes they're just left in the game hidden. He's found locations like unused Gerudo houses or unfinished dungeons just by clipping through walls in the boundaries of Tears of the Kingdom. And apparently he found one in the depths for a hidden chasm. So that's a cool video. I'm going to link it in the show notes. It's cool. Check it out on YouTube. And then personally, as a RPG fan, I'm also a fan of the Xenoblade Chronicles. So when the Xenoblade X remake comes out, Definitive Edition, I'll be getting that later this month and playing through it. For today's show, we're going to be doing 2 segments. The first part, we're going to be talking about the titular movie, just like every other episode. And then the second part, we're going to actually go through some social media, see what some people are talking about Zelda. see some of the big Zelda sites, like the Zelda Reddit page, Zelda Dungeon, see what they're talking about, and just kind of elaborate on that, put my own thoughts out there. So we'll have a little break in between. This is my first time kind of doing this, adding something into the content of the show, having like two halves or like two segments. The Maze Runner, The Death Cure. This came out in 2018, and I was in college at this point, and I guess I wasn't super big into movies during college because college was such a show. College was so much work, and I don't know. I guess I didn't make it a priority either to follow movies through college. I mean, even today, I kind of follow movies, but I'm not every day checking articles. There's different levels to things. And yeah, this was on my radar when it came out. College, really, all I think I was caring about was the Marvel stuff. The Marvel stuff was really popular, Infinity War and Endgame. So I never saw this movie. Just like the Scorch Trials, I haven't seen it until I started doing this series on the director Wes Ball. Reason I'm doing these Maze Runner movies is because Wes Ball, the director of these, he's doing the Zelda movie. So just kind of curious to get some of his insight or see like the movies he's produced, made, see if any of those skills, any of those styles translate well to a potential Zelda movie. I know I'm grasping at straws here because there's so many other factors that contribute into a movie. The producers attached, the casting, special effects, the story itself. I figured if we could look at the individual components like West Ball, we could kind of... It's also fun to just imagine what a Zelda movie could look like given some of this stuff and ask questions like, how is this going to be different than the Maze Runner? Obviously, than just the plot points, kind of looking at it a little differently. And there's some things in these movies I kind of already talked about, and I'm just going to treat it like this is your first episode of the show you're listening to. There's some things in these action movies, the Maze Runner movies, that are going to be hard for them to do in a Zelda context. They're very dependent on like gunfire fights and explosions. There's a lot of that going on. A lot of the action sequences are just shooting guns and explosions and running around trying to escape, cat and mouse stuff. Which, for the Zelda games, yeah, there's action, and the only explosions we really get is when Link places a bomb, but it's not like a big bomb. It's bomb to like clear some rocks or clear a wall or clear a way into something. There's not really a chase sequence in the Zelda games that I can think of other than if you're like playing hide and seek on Outset Island. But the other part of these movies that makes me excited if they put this level of production towards the Zelda movie is the set design. I really like the sets. All the locations in these movies are great, and I think the way they do the color palettes for different scenes is really cool, especially towards the end of this movie. Yes, we will be discussing spoilers. There's these neon lights at night when they're doing the whole raiding the city, the big action, the big finale. I like these neon colors contrasted with the black, the night sky and all that. Also, a part of the reason why I like the Cyberpunk game. I like that neon aesthetic to it. In this city, I mean, this is supposed to be in the future. It kind of gives you that cyberpunk vibes other than the cyber stuff, but it gives you a big metropolis setting, big spanning skyscrapers with a bunch of people living in there, and technology that's not fully explained, like we see at Wicked, which, realizing what it stood for, World Catastrophe Kill Zone Department, I think the author was going on a stretch just to try to name it something evil, just so it obviously sounded evil. But at what point does the world have to get together and say, okay, we need a kill zone department or a special catastrophe department other than the institutions that are already in place? I don't think they say what time the flare virus breaks out. That's probably something in the books that the movie fails to explain. if it does mention when the flare, like if they actually put actual years to the dates, to the events, that would be a little interesting to see. But then that also lends it vulnerable to, I think, like the movie iRobot, Will Smith, that's coming up here in a couple of years, which is crazy to me to think that how it was so in the future a while ago, but it's almost here, basically. But yeah, the color palette, the set design, if they put that much, if they put care and stuff into the sets for the Zelda movie, that would make me happy. And I hope they build and try to minimize the green screen. I get it. Some parts they'll have to just make like the surfaces that they're on that move, those probably have to be real and the rest might be green screen. I get it. But I feel like wood stuff, we've covered some other movies here on the show, like The Neverending Story or Legend, where they actually had a big studio with a fake forest on the inside that they made for the movie. So if they could build a set or just borrow a set like that and tailor it for their needs, I really like those practical effects. I don't want the whole thing to be a live action, but really animated movie. I got that feeling with The Lion King. I was like, this isn't live action. This is animated to look live action. But that's veering into a different direction we won't get into today. But the movie itself was fun. Got a little long, but I guess it's trying to close up a trilogy, and I don't know the source material. I never read the books. This was also in an era where a lot of books, they were the last movie for whatever book series that's being adapted would be split into two parts. Famously, they did that with Harry Potter and the Hunger Games series. They were or in Twilight. They took the last book and they made the two different movies off of it. But this one, they said, oh, we're just going to make one movie. So I don't know how much stuff was actually cut out and how much stuff is actually missing from these movies. I have it on my to-read book list right now, which is too long the way it is. Maybe if I played a little less games, I could read more. But that's a different discussion entirely. But it was like a 2.5 hour runtime. Watched this in one go. No occasional pausing to let the dog out or to get a glass of water, something to drink. And I think it has a strong start. It doesn't hold your hand, really. You have to remember at what happens at the end of the Scorch trials to really start the death cure. There's no recap or anything. They just go straight into it. I kind of like the Mad Max-esque scene with the trucks and the carrier and the train in the desert. I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just what they were going for independently. Reading about this movie, I noticed that production was actually halted and delayed because of this scene. When Thomas jumps from the car to the train, he actually sustains a head injury, causing filming to be put on pause for a while. Which, cool that he did his own stunt for that, but also risky move for the production company, 20th Century Fox, to have the main star do their own stunts, because if something happens, the whole production is put on pause. They can't really do much without the main star there. That was interesting. I also noticed Brenda had long hair right away, where in the previous in Scorch trials, she had short hair. Later on, we find out there's like a 6-month time gap. But looking at it, there was a reason she had long hair. She was filming another movie at the same time, the movie we're going to be talking about next week, where the character needed the long hair. And apparently in the books, Brenda is described as having longer hair. So it's a continuity thing that they changed for the better, I think. And it also just happened to work out with the actress's next other movie she was making at the time. Some of the other characters, Newt, they look a little older in this movie. But if you think about it, that's part of the problem with having like teenagers for these big franchises, because as the franchise moves on and movie after movie after movie gets made, you can see you're watching the children grow up at the same time. The span run of Harry Potter Emma Watson, Rupert Grint, and Daniel Radcliffe, and then all the other stars for the Harry Potter movies. You can see them growing up as you watch the saga. I thought it was cool. I was reading about Avatar, and those movies, when they were filming Avatar 2, which introduced the kids, spoilers for Avatar, by the way, they've also filmed a lot of the kids scenes for Avatar 3 and Avatar 4 at the same time. So later on, when they're editing and putting those movies together, the kids look around the same age for continuity purposes. Plus, it's also like a big investment, taking this cast of actors and saying, you're going to be on these movies for a while as well. Kind of like, I guess that's like any acting role, especially committing to like a TV show or any other movie franchise. Like if you're joining Marvel, you kind of have to know that you're going to be committed to them for a while. But it's also good job security until your character is killed or whatever happens. The actor playing Thomas sustains the head injury, and apparently he wanted Wes Ball. They had a discussion about using the actual footage for the film versus using another take, see what cut actually makes it into the film. And the guy that plays Thomas gave him permission. He's like, if we don't include it, it'll be like it was for nothing. So I don't know. I think it was a strong opening, and then we got a little bit of a lull after they save the train. They kind of go to the base and kind of do some recap stuff. I wanted a classic formula, starting the action movie with an action scene, and then right after that, then they'll do all the story exposition dumps and laying out the framework for the rest of the movie. I could totally see them doing that. I could totally see the Zelda movie starting. I could totally picture a Zelda movie doing that trick, starting with a big flashy action sequence and then starting with a story. Or maybe for Zelda, they might do like not text on a screen. They might do like a narrator setting the scene, like Lord of the Rings. They might have like a storytelling and then jumping straight into the action and then actually explaining what's going on. I could see that. They kind of did that for the Mario movie. They have Bowser and the penguins on the front end, and then they go to Brooklyn to set up the Mario Brothers. So I'm totally, if I had to bet money on that, I would totally, if there was like a FanDuel or a Prize Picks for movies, that might be dangerous for me. Because I like to be right, too. It's always satisfying when you're like, okay, one of these characters is going to die. They have to. And I forget my predictions. I kind of talked about it last time for Scorched Trials. But I said either Minho or Newt was probably going to biff it in this one. And somebody was right. Did I mention Teresa? I think I also said Teresa they probably wouldn't kill. So I was shown wrong by the movie on that bet. But I did have like the happy ending, which wasn't well explained. I brought it up. Let's talk about the happy ending. So we learn that the virus is airborne in the movie, and that the last city doesn't even have a month before everyone's infected. So Ava Page has basically declared defeat. And then Teresa finds that Thomas's blood doesn't only stop the spread of the flare virus, but it actually destroys the flare virus. So the happy ending, when they're all on an island by themselves, is their plan just to use his blood or serum, give that to everybody on the island, and then grow society from there. I mean, there was some nice homages and tributes to all the people that have died through the series, and an optimistic look forward, but it wasn't really discussed about too much. I don't know. Other things in this movie I found looking at it, in the boardroom scene, kind of towards the beginning, there's Ava, Teresa, and then like the board of Wicked is there, 2 guys and a woman. The one board member that doesn't have any lines with the little beard, that's James Dashner. That's actually the author of the series. His little cameo in the movie is there. I saw that looking I already noticed him from seeing pictures of him at Comic Con. And then I saw on one of the fun fact pages about the movie that it was actually him. So I thought that was cool. The Newt death, the second I saw that he was infected, I kind of knew that they weren't going to be able to save him. I wish they showed how he got infected. Was it something that just happened during a sequence that we didn't see? Kind of missed that part. We got Eyebrows back. Galley. I forgot that was his name. I don't even remember if that's actually what they called him in the Maze Runner. I just took the movie's word for it. And then we got Lawrence, who's like the rebel leader that brings all the rebels inside the city. Just chaos. Didn't follow that thread too well. I guess it just happens to be a side plot that's probably more developed in the book and just kind of thrown in there in the movie. I wish we kind of got to learn more about Lawrence and exactly how the outsiders live and why they're not welcomed in the city and all that. You would think you'd want people there as long as you can test them and prove that they're not infected. Looking up this movie on the rating websites, IMDb, Rotten Tomatoes, I was expecting it to actually be a little better than The Scorched Trials, but in some ways it performed a little under. So like IMDb is giving this, The Death Cure, a 6.3 out of 10, and Rotten Tomatoes has it at 43%. Which I would just disagree with. Looking at some of the user reviews on IMDb, seeing what some of the people said are talking about the movie. One of the things a lot of people are giving to it is it's just a lot of action cliches, bit after bit. Like when Langdon kills Ava Page in the tower, I totally saw that coming. I was like, she's gonna get shot. We haven't seen Littlefinger for a while, and down she goes. It's a lot of cliches. The only thing innovative and forward-looking for the movie, I guess, is the actual just base setting is pretty cool. But I think it was an enjoyable end to this series. I think it closed up things, kinda. There wasn't too many side plots or loose threads to tie up in the first place. But it was an epic finale that I like. It's also just an action movie too, so a lot of the reviews I'm seeing just ding it on that part of it as well. Its legacy, I mean, now that 20th Century Fox is owned by Disney, there's an article from a year ago in 2024 where Disney expressed interest in rebooting, or not quite a full reboot, but a continuation of the Maze Runner universe. So I'm curious to see what that comes to fruition to in these projects, and we'll see what they do, see what this franchise has in the future. It looks like it's not dead. They're going to do some more stuff with it. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be trying a new segment. And we're back, going into the next second part of the show where I'm just going to be looking at some articles and some social media postings on the Zelda pages and see what people are talking about until I get some questions in, some fan questions. So if you have questions you want to send in, get answered or talked about on the show, feel free to send them into ZeldaFilmcast@gmail.com. You can also text them in if you click the send a message link in the show description. Today we have for a question someone posted in the Zelda Reddit. Just got Breath of the Wild. What am I supposed to be doing? I just got a Nintendo Switch today. Never played a Nintendo before. I've just started Zelda Breath of the Wild. Where am I supposed to go? What am I supposed to do? I don't understand. And that's a very interesting question given the context for Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild is one of those games that's very different than other open world or other franchise games. There's not necessarily a checklist and a map and hand-holding in Breath of the Wild. You engage with the Great Plateau, and that's honestly, I think, one of the best things to happen to gaming. The way they went from Skyward Sword, which was super hand-holdy, and really babied you with how to play the game, to Breath of the Wild, where it was, we trust you as the player to explore and figure things out. And in the post it says they just got their Nintendo today. This is their first Nintendo, so they don't necessarily specify if they've played Xbox or PlayStation or how they've played other games before. But it is a little different approach, just going through this game and figure out what you wanted to do. The game does nudge you along a path, so maybe they're just not reading the text. Some of the comments people have are talking about, are telling the poster to do objectives, have fun with horses, go exploring. I'm remembering the first time I played Breath of the Wild. But going into it, I had known that it was going to be different than everything else, and just running around and explore. Tears of the Kingdom does that too, just there's so much more. There's almost like decision paralysis at the same time. So that's a discussion about someone's first time playing Breath of the Wild. I remember my first time playing Breath of the Wild. I enjoyed it. I wish more games were less hand-holding like that. Elden Ring, very popular FromSoft game. They kind of took that to the extreme, and they're like, we're not even going to have like a quest log. You just kind of have to know what's going on, or else you're out of luck. Looking at Zelda Dungeon, they have a daily debate on X. Do you want all-terrain climbing to be a staple for 3D Zelda games moving forward? That's their question, because Breath of the Wild and then Tears of the Kingdom followed suit with having all the surfaces climbable with the caveat of rain. And I think this is a really cool exploration tactic and tool. Now, to have it for all the Zelda games moving forward, that would depend if all the Zelda games moving forward are going to be open world. I'm curious to see what direction the next major Zelda game goes in. See if they're going to keep the open world formula or if they're going to shake up the Zelda franchise again. I'd be interested to see. Here in the States, we have the Academy Awards tonight, Oscars. I am partial to the Dune 2 movie from last year. That's up for 5 different awards, so we'll see what happens at the Oscars tonight and see if maybe some movies come up worth talking about. But that's going to be it for this episode. If you like what you heard, tell a friend and leave us a review. If you have any movie suggestions or feedback, I'd love to hear it. Follow me on X at ZeldaFilmcast, and next time we're going to be watching Alita Battle Angel from 2019. Thanks for listening, and as always, may the Triforce be with you.